Let's talk about the agreement to lease commercial, Chapter 7. So, the agreement to lease commercial is one of the important aspect, and in this chapter, we're going to talk about identifying and discussing all major clauses in containing the agreement to lease commercial, outline the key consideration when preparing agreement to lease, with particular regards to the rent-free period, early occupancy, landlord and tenant work, signage, and parking. Discuss the range of clauses that can be included in agreement to lease, identify various clauses contained in agreement to sublease, um, broad, broadly highlight the we're going to broadly highlight the benefit of tenant representation and lease negotiation, and critically analyze the agreement of lease commercial and draft an agreement lease commercial along with the schedule to an agreement. So let's begin with the agreement of lease commercial. An agreement of lease commercial must contain all the elements essential to the lease. That is the identification of the party, description of the premises to be leased, consideration the amount of rent and the definite term, commencement and termination dates. The form also provides for the execution of the lease. As with the residential counterpart, an agreement to lease is legally referred to as agreement to lease without a settled form of lease. Essentially, the lease confirms that not everything has been settled, but full and detailed concepts will be included in the lease. All substantive and material matters must be addressed in the agreement, with only minor amendment contemplated in any final lease. Obviously, the legal strength of the agreement of lease rests in how well the document details the understanding of the parties. The agreement of real commercial form of lease has two forms: short form and the long form. Um, the 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 short form is more suited for the smaller commercial buildings and straightforward leasing arrangement where we have a cross lease in the older buildings, and the long form is used um, when the when there are more complex situations and we have to deal with graduated rents or additional rents or charges. So so in case of a long form, you would have graduated rents, and you have the option to add an additional rent, and it doesn't support the gross leases. For gross leases, you have to use a short form. Um, so, a couple of key items for an agreement to lease commercial is rent-free period. This is a period of time granted to a tenant to occupy premises at no cost as an incentive to signing the lease. If a rent-free period is negotiated, clearly identify the number of months, exactly what portion of the rent is rent-free. Typically, the base rent is only rent-free. In some leases, the free rent is not specifically referred to, but is effectively provided for the difference between the date of occupancy and date on which the rental period actually begins. In most cases, the rent period occurs in advance of the commencement date of the lease. The fee is rent free and at no cost require qualification, generally rent free. Concept applies only to the base rent and not additional rents. Registrants must to ensure a clear understanding of what exactly is meant. Also, rent free period may exclude both base and additional rent, but include a flat payment per square feet for services rendered and utilities used during the installation of tenant improvement like temporary lighting, garbage facilities maintenance, and security, etc. Rental periods are normally found in commercial buildings where the landlord is seeking to rent up or fully occupy the building. Such periods are also common in the release market where excess square footage exists within the defined market area. Rental periods are popular as landlords can maintain a desired per square foot rate on the leases while offering a tangible incentive to the tenants. On the other hand, the tenants can use rent-free savings to offset relocation cost. Expense stop essentially means that the Landlord may include a concession related to the expenses as an inducement to the tenant. The expense offsets or the maximum landlord contribution concerning any or all of the concessions and tenant has responsibilities for applicable payments. The type of incentive improves tenant cash flow normally for a period at the beginning of the lease. Early occupancy, a landlord will provide certain assurance in order for a tenant to obtain obtain early occupancy, often in conjunction with the rent-free period. This will vary, but generally landlords who agree to early occupancy will require that the lease has been fully executed and any rental period or security deposit is paid. All landlord work is completed. The landlord provides the necessary insurance certificates as required by the lease. It is understood that and agreed that and that provided a formal lease has been executed by both landlord and the tenant, and upon the tenant providing evidence of tenant insurance satisfactory to the landlord, and tenant shall be granted possession of the demised premises on this day of the gross rent free to the lease commencement in order to pay for the premises operation and business, provided that during the said rent free period the tenant shall comply with all the terms and regulations of the lease. This lease clause reviews in conjunction with an insurance clause specifying outlining the insurance requirements. So essentially, any of the early occupancy or requires that the insurance clause to be put in. Uh, the prepaid clause wordings regarding HST says that do not include HST in the rental in the rental amount. So HST is always additional. The regarding measurements, the agreement provides that the minimum rent will be adjusted as the actual measurement differ from the appropriate measurement. Interestingly, a discrepancy between the plan and as is built dimensions can be found even in new office buildings that are built using CAD. CAD systems, if potential discrepancies are anticipated, the services of the professional measurement company are strongly recommended and dispute when resolved using the POMA standard. Builders Association, Builders Association regarding usable and rentable. Sometimes this information does not clearly state whether measurements provided are rentable or usable. Clarification is always required, particularly when the lease involves space and additional rent. As the cost of factor increases, rent obligation through appropriating cost based on the rentable area. For a single tenant leasing the entire premises, the discussion of is somewhat academic as the tenant is paying for the gross leasable area. Also, in the gross leases, the the issue is obviously irrelevant because anyways it's a, he's including the entire building. Services. The prepaid wordings begin with an option that either the tenant or the landlord is responsible for the payment of services. So we need to choose the option to meet individual circumstances. If arrangement differ from the predefined statement, then it needs to be amended. Okay. Now, in case the additional rent applies, then we have to check that box. While schedules can vary based on the property types, at minimum, we need to provide one copy of the floor plan, including the demised premises, showing all sizes, including rentable and unusable square footage, details of any landlord to work. Additional terms and provisions often the landlord will provide a standard set of schedules that align with the base lease used for the material development. Lease document has schedules. The inclusion of entire lease provides a further assurance that the tenant fully appreciates obligations surrounding the proposed tenancy. Um, uh, the agreement really is commercial, though it is generally enforceable in the absence of a lease. It's typically viewed as a partial consensus leading to the final agreement. The drafting of the lease document may better ensures that the tenant fully understands all substantive issues. Some landlords, particularly those involved with complex leases, may insist on this procedure. Rules, regulations, and schedule. Interestingly, landlords are inserting specific rules and regulations as a schedule to the lease, particularly for large commercial complexes. Landlord to tenant work. As an example, a schedule of landlord to tenant work might include the following: that the landlord will supply outline diagrams showing such things as overall dimensions, cross sections, location of the rear door, entry points for heat and air conditioning, water, sewer, electricity, and sprinkler layout. The landlord will also specify the extent of structural finishing like framing, finished roof, concrete floors, party walls, and entrance doors. The tenant will submit complete drawings for finishing the premises. The tenant will submit complete drawing for finishing the premises, underfloor electrical or plumbing systems, if any, floor plans, ceiling plan, duct work, electrical wiring, distribution panels, washing facilities, interior partitioning, and finishes. The schedule may also set out any special provisions at the right of first refusal by the landlord to complete to complete the tenant work, limitations on live load, required completion of work by tenants, compliance with provincial building codes, and approval of all improvement by the landlord. Signage. Regarding we have to very specific regarding signage location, include reference to any relevant tenant directories in lobbies, sign pylons, corridor signs, at the entrance, or other window signs. Signage issues can be complex, particularly when group pylon signs and walls that are located at a distance from the leased premises. Pre-printed form states that the tenant is responsible for signage. Tenants should be aware that such costs may include initial installation, require approval, separate amount levied by the landlord for freestanding pylons, ongoing maintenance, and removal at the end of the lease term. Parking. The standard water user provide for tenants exclusive use of the parking space. If such is the case, then include details by the way of a tax schedule. Clause 19 requires an specific emphasis when negotiating an agreement release commercial. Makes certain that the tenant and landlord clearly understand that the brokerage is not providing legal accounting tax or service. Also, make certain that the parties have been advised to obtain independent professional advice. The standard wording for the consumer report is not included in the agreement of lease commercial. Consumer Reporting Act defines the consumer as someone not engaged in a business. Therefore, the requirement of the Act does not apply to the commercial transactions. However, the many agreements include a reference to the report, if that's the case, inside the wording. So, to recap, the standard wordings of the for a commercial report is not included in the agreement of purchase and lease commercial, because the Consumer Reporting Act defines a consumer as someone not engaged in a business, and therefore the requirement of the Act do not apply to the commercial transactions. However, many agreements include reference to the report. Schedule clauses. A schedule is often needed that forms a part of the agreement release commercial. A typical schedule is provided containing selected clauses for illustration purposes only. This offer is conditional upon the approval of the terms hereon by the tenant solicitor, unless the tenant gives notice in writing delivered to the landlord personally or in accordance with any other provisions for delivery of the notice in his agreement of purchase and sale or any schedule thereto, not later than 6 p.m. on 20th of April 27. That this condition fulfilled, offer shall be null and void, and the deposit shall be returned to a tenant in full deduction. This condition is included for the benefit of the tenant and may be waived at a tenant's sole option by notice of writing to the landlord, as aforementioned with a time period stated herein. The tenant use of the premises is to comply with all the requirements of the municipal zoning bylaw, the requirements of the Ministry of Environment, the rules and regulations of the Environment Protection Act, and any amendment thereto. The tenant agrees to indemnify and not harmless the landlord from or against any claims, demand, losses, costs, damages, action, suits, and or proceeding that may be brought or commenced by anyone or any group, including any environmental agencies, groups, or as a result of the tenant use of the premises or any breach by the tenant of any rules, bylaws, and regulations. The tenant warrants that no noxious or environmentally unfriendly chemicals or product should be allowed to enter the drain through the lease terms, and upon vacating the premises, no such chemicals or product shall be left on the premises. So to recap, in the schedule for the agreement of lease commercial, we can have multiple conditions. The conditions would be like the office condition on the approval of the terms hereof of the tenant's solicitor, unless the tenant gives the notice in writing delivered to the landlord personally or in accordance with any other provisions for the delivery of this notice and this agreement purchase and sale or any scheduled thereto, not later than 6 p.m. of 20th days of April. That this condition is fulfilled, this official null and void, and deposit shall be returned to tenant in full without deduction. The condition included for the benefit of the tenant and may be waived at the tenant's sole option by notice in writing to the landlord, as aforementioned within the time period stated herein. The tenant use of the premises is to comply with all the requirements of the municipal zoning bylaw, the requirements of the Ministry of Environment, and the rules and regulations of the Environment Protection Act, and any amendment thereto. The tenant agrees to indemnify and harmless the landlord from or against any claims, demands, losses, costs, damages, action, suits, or proceeding that may be brought or commenced by anyone or any group, including any commercial, implying in the environmental agency or a group as a result of the tenant use of premises or any breach by a tenant of any rules, bylaws, and regulations. The tenant warrants that no noxious, environmentally unfriendly chemicals or products should be allowed to enter the drain without, through the lease terms. Throughout the lease terms, upon evacuating the premises, those chemicals or products shall be left on the premises. Now, in case of agreement to agreement to sublease, there are few additional clauses that are important. For example, the clause 3, the terms of a sublease, include the term along with the right to renew, if applicable. So the term of sublease, the sublease shall be of the term 63 months commencing from 1st of November 2011 and terminating on 31st of January 2016. Provided that the subtenant is not at any point in time in default of any covenant within the sublease, the subtenant will be entitled to renew this sublease for an additional terms of this month each. We already notice of sublease given no less than X number of months prior to the expiry of the current term at a rental rate to be negotiated. In the event that the sublandlord and subtenant cannot agree to the fixed maximum rent for at least 2 weeks prior to the expiry of the current kinds of lease, the fixed minimum rent for the renewal period shall be determined by the arbitration in accordance with the Arbitration Act or any successor or replacement act. And then there's a clause number 9. The head lease is described and a copy of that lease is attached as a schedule to the agreement to sublease commercial. Now, it says that the subtenant interest in the premises is by the virtue of a lease, also called as a head lease, between Southeastern Rail Holdings and PKW Properties, dated this, and a copy of it attached as a Schedule C. Sublease described herein is to be subject to and in accordance with the terms of the head lease. So essentially, what is happening is on the sublease, we are referring to the head lease and saying that the sublease described herein is to be subject to and in accordance with the terms of the head lease, except that any terms and conditions of the sublease that are in direct contradiction to the terms of the head lease, in which case the terms and conditions within the sublease agreement between the sublandlord and the subtenant will apply. Subject to this provision, both sublandlord and subtenant agree to fully comply with the terms and conditions of the head lease and the sublease. So the important factor here is both the sublease and the head lease can contradict, and in case of a contradiction, the provisions of all the terms and conditions in the sublease will apply. Approvals of the head lease by subtenants. Subtenants shall have until no later than 5 p.m. on 20th day of August 2011 to approve the head lease. If the head lease is not satisfactory to the subtenant under sale or an absolute discretion of the subtenant may terminate the agreement by notice in the writing delivered to the sublandlord prior to the expiry of the time period stated above, and the deposit shall be returned to the subtenant in full with the discretion. Now again, there is also the approval of subtenant by the head landlord. This office to sublease is conditional upon the approval of the subtenant by the head landlord. Unless the sublandlord gives notice in writing delivered to the subtenant or the subtenant's address as herein included not later than 5 p.m. on 25th of August, this condition is fulfilled, this offer shall be null and void, and the deposit shall be returned to the subtenant in full without deduction. Another clause is clause number 14, where the sublandlords and subtenants work. The landlord agrees to complete the work described in the sublandlord's work in Schedule B. Attached to the subtenant agrees to complete any additional work necessary to prepare the premises for the subtenant's use. This is described in the subtenant's work Schedule B here too. The subtenant shall not proceed with any work wherein are affecting the premises without the sublandlords and head landlord's prior approval or prior written approval. Agreement to lease negotiations. These negotiations are a matter of perspective. The landlord perspective is best described through three factors: increased income received from tenants, provided additional cash flow. Under under normal circumstances, additional cash flow translates into improved investor returns that can positively affect the property value. Long-term consistent lease information and income and maintenance and appreciation of the property value is assured through the selection of quality tenants. Now, in case of a lease negotiation, um, there is more a matter of perspective. The landlord perspective is best viewed through three factors. Increased income received from tenant provides additional cash flow. Under normal circumstances, additional cash flow translates into improved investor return that can be positively affect the property value. Longer term, consistent lease income and maintenance and appreciation of the property is assured through the selection of quality tenants. A well-documented agreement to raise commercial and a subsequent lease that accurately and completely defines the tenant obligation during the lease period help minimize landlord risk. The tenant prospective and the demand for a lease premises is based on several factors. Prime location may be essential, and yet ownership is either economically impractical or unavailable. Insufficient tenant resources can limit capital expenditure to business-related investments, inventory, equipment, office improvements, thereby necessitating the leasing of space. Leasing can be viewed as a method to utilize 100% financing in relation to real estate required for a business purpose. No initial capital is required, and all the payments are fully expensed for tax purposes. Leasing can provide a better financial picture and positively affect credit rating because the rent payments are considered as expense in the profit and loss statement as opposed to the liability on the balance sheet. A default on the lease is not as onerous as the default on the mortgage. Tenant does not want the responsibilities and obligations of owning and managing a property. Leasing gives such a short-term flexibility that the entrepreneur is unable to accurately forecast size requirements for a reasonable period in future, and only reasonable required space for a specified time period only. So to recap, from a landlord perspective, increased income received from the tenant gives additional cash flow and makes it attractive long-term consistent income, lease income, and maintenance of the property is assured to quality tenants and well-documented agreement of lease. A student lease can define a clearly completely defined tenant obligation during the lease period and help minimize landlord risk. Now, a tenant perspective, prime location can maybe is essential and yet the ownership might be difficult. So that's an easy way for him to get to the prime location. Insufficient tenant resources can limit capital expenditure to business-related investments, and so he wants to conserve his resources to be better spent on inventory, equipment, office improvements, and so on. Leasing can be viewed as a 100%. It's a way to a method to utilize 100% financing in relation to the real estate requirements for business purposes. Leasing can give a better financial picture and further affect the credit rating. Concurrent payments are shown as considered expenses in profit and loss statement as opposed to a liability. Default on the lease is not as one says default on the mortgage, and does not want responsibility and obligation of owning and managing a lease, and leasing gives them short-term flexibility that the entrepreneur is unable to accurately forecast size requirements for a reasonable period of time in future, or only requires space for a specified time period. On the converse, the, the on the converse, the tenant loses the capital appreciation of the property. There is no security of tenure after the end of term of lease. Cash flow of the business enterprise are seriously effective if significant increases occur at the point of lease renewal, and extensive image building and client development can be effective if the move is associated. Now the tenant objectives are: industrial tenants frequently concentrate on ceiling height, clear floor area, floor load capacity, loading dock, office component, and the electricals. Commercial or retail tenants focus on the location, traffic count, and demographic. And office tenants frequently emphasize on location, access, building appearance and facilities, client parking, and security. So to recap, an industrial tenant is looking for a ceiling height, clear floor area, floor load capacity, loading dock, office equipments, of office components, and the electricals. The commercial retail land focuses on location, traffic count, and demographic. Office tenant requires location, access, loading, building appearance, facilities, client parking, and security. Rental costs are generally a matter of supply and demand. How a tenant generally pays more rent for office in relation to the location of the space. You have certain objective, how the space fits their specific physical work needs, how the space fits their specific identified needs, how the space will generate revenue to pay out the rent. Working with first time tenant. First time tenant frequently experience considerable difficulty in locating and obtaining a suitable location, lacks contacts, and are limited to in their available free time to research location, does not appreciate the many and variable costs that will be incurred, fails to understand the rental costs that can vary dramatically, faces stringent credit and experience checks, fails to realize the special facilities that may not be readily available or economically viable for a particular operation, cook stove vent, fire control services, special security systems, and estimates the high cost of fixtures and stocking, associated cost of capital to open the operations. So again, working with first-time tenant is a challenge because first-time tenant frequently experiences considerable difficulty in locating and obtaining suitable location, lacks contacts and unlimited in the available free time to research locations, does not appreciate the many and variable costs that will be incurred, fails to understand the rental costs that can vary dramatically even among similar properties, faces stringent credit and experience check, fails to realize that the special facility may not be readily available or economically viable for this particular location, and underestimates the high cost of fixtures and stockings and associated costs of capital to open the operation. After meeting these challenges, the first-time tenant often wants to complete most of the finishing work by himself to save costs. Frequently, the one on the fronts on this approach as complications can arise, union clashes, failure to meet standards, liability issues. Occasionally, landlord may advance funds or amortize the loan over the term of the lease. The landlord normally sets out a separate and distinct repayment schedule. If this amount were merely added to the rent, then the percentage rental would be affected, not to mention the possible tax implications. Some landlords accept such disadvantages and roll the amortized loan amount into the rent. The net result is the appearance of a higher rent, thus possibly increasing the mortgage amount if it's based on the gross rent. Regardless, the owner of the commercial properties is interested in maximizing cash flows, proceeds, procuring the adequate return on capital, and obtaining the most appealing grouping of diverse uses geared to a particular market. The first-time tenant is an important ingredient in any structured mix, along with multi-use or major tenants. These lease negotiations, these established anchor tenants often employ in-house solicitors, real estate managers, construction departments. Ultimately, the landlord wants to obtain the strongest tenant to lease the designated premises on the acceptable terms. To recap, the agreement to lease must contain all the elements essential to the lease. The agreement to lease, as discussed, refers to an agreement for lease without a settled form of lease. Rent-free period typically occurs in advance of lease commencement date. Expense stop is used to set out maximum landlord contribution for a specific concession to the lease. The agreement to lease commercial form is used for illustration. It provides that maximum rent will be adjusted if the actual measurement differ from the upper approximate measurement. Residents are encouraged to attach the formal lease to the agreement of lease commercial to ensure the better understanding of the lease obligations by prospective tenants. And various schedules can be attached to the agreement of lease commercial based on the specific requirements and instructions. Wordings of agreement to sublease commercial generally aligns with the agreement of lease commercial with necessary wording modification to suit requirements involving a sublease. These negotiations are a matter of perspective from between landlords and tenant. Tenant objectives typically vary based on desired property types, and first-time tenants can pose a special challenge while seeking a commercial space. I think with this we are done with chapter number 7, agreement to lease commercial. Thanks for your time.